This is update for May 9, 2024, day 806 of the war, and of the date update. Also catch up for May 7 and May 8. I'm gonna start with general strategic updates, and then I'm gonna switch to the situation on the battlefield, as I always do. So first item is actually about Russia, and it's about birth rates. So birth rates in Russia continue to plummet. There's new data that came out from Russian Statistical Bureau, and it shows that in March it was, I think, 99,000 babies were born. That's 11.5 thousand down. Sorry, it's 11% down relative to 2023. So basically, March to March, year on year, basically, 2023, which is the best comparison, apples to apples, and it's down 11.5% cumulatively since the beginning of the year. The births down 3.5%. So looks like this trend is really nosediving, in particular in March. Also, death rates are going up. So basically, you have this extremely negative scissors of birth rates up, deaths up, and so the you're losing population. This is I just want to sort of mention this for because there is a lot of Russian propaganda about excellent family life and family values and so on. As you can see, sort of people vote with their children, basically, or not having children, and that's best answer about the family values and the general environment for raising families in Russia. And the reason for that is actually not so straightforward. It's actually administrative state in Russia, and it's obviously similar situations are in the West. It's the same as in Ukraine. So all of these countries are having plummeting birth rates, and the main driver is actually administrative state that actually destroys effectively family everywhere, including Russia, despite the propaganda outside of Russia that things are wonderful and perfect for the family. It's, so we can see the real situation is actually completely opposite. Now I'm going to switch to a little bit different topic, and it's Russian oil refineries. Ukrainian military is actively continuing or resumed and continues attacks against Russian refineries, which is the most vulnerable and most effective way to inflict enough damage for Russia to, let's say, if not break, to really, really significantly damage war machine. So there were two oil refineries that were attacked. The no result. We'll see it later in terms of prices, in terms of shortages. At the same time, I have to mention that Russia is managing to bring back some of the damaged capacity back online. So I think there was refinery somewhere in Krasnodar region that was attacked sometime end of January, early February, and allegedly Russian authorities reporting that refinery is back online. So this is overall, it's still a very successful strategy for Ukraine. That's, again, something that actually truly works and is actually least harmful in terms of human lives for both sides. And so in some ways it's the best solution. Then I want to mention the next thing about Russia. Obviously, everybody knows that Russian president was re-elected, got into power, so he has basically carte blanche to do what he wants. He, let's say, renewed his own legitimacy, and even though he has limited legitimacy in the West, or I would say to the point of non-recognition by some European countries. The most important is actually that he renewed his legitimacy in Russia, because his power is coming from Russia, not from the West. And he effectively confirmed his support by general Russian population, which there is clearly support for Russian president. There's no doubt about that in Russia, and so that sort of opens for him opportunities for, call it, more strategic actions, or more sort of, call it, radical actions in some ways. So we'll see what happens in the coming months. I'm sure there will be significant moves and changes and so on, because there's also extremely high expectations of the Russian president inside of Russia. So he's also a little bit under pressure. Obviously, it's not, it's nothing similar to the West, where you have elected politicians, but it's still, there's different type of pressure, but there is always pressure. And the other important part for Russia is that at high level, Russian military is slowly but surely switching from brigade level to division level. This process started, I believe, like more than a year ago, sometime end of 2022 or early 2023, and it's sort of picking up pace. Not always this the sort of converted units are announced as such. So, for example, there was mentioning that this 810th Brigade, you can see here, Naval Infantry Brigade, it's at this point it's already actually division, so it's roughly 11,000 people there, soldiers. So as we can see, so some ways many of these unit names could be misleading, because and misleading in sort of more, I would say, negative surprise for Ukrainian side, because some of these brigades are secretly or sort of hiddenly converted into, actually enlarged into divisions. The importance of all of this is that divisions are tools for a large war, and they are by nature, this is more offensive tool than defensive. Brigades are more of defensive tool in general. If you kind of think about this conceptually, it's not always perfectly, like it's I would say generalization, let's put it this way. But again, this confirms that Russia is firmly on the path of building up its military capability and sort of continuing its war in Ukraine, and probably beyond Ukraine eventually. So that's all in terms of general news. Now I'm going to switch to the situation in Ukraine on the battlefield. So I want to a little bit mention about this Russian army group North. That's really kind of like northeast from Ukrainian perspective. So there is this container, as I mentioned before, that was created, but there is not much inside of that container. And despite all of this, stories, there is imminent attack on Kharkiv or Sumy, or in that direction. I would be sort of surprised and shocked if Russian side is doing that, because simply they don't have enough resources, and that attack would waste those small amount of resources that they accumulated, let's put it this way. Also, anecdotally, Russian units are sort of becoming lower on heavy equipment, and specifically tanks, armor fighting vehicles, AFVs. So I'm not saying they don't have it, but sort of they are sort of less rich, which also means that the losses are high, and ability to produce and replenish losses through production are not sufficient. And also refurbishing old equipment also is not fast enough to basically to keep pace with losses. So that's again self-limiting situation, and that also by itself forces that Russian side has to be very narrowly focused on certain areas where they create significant advantage and sort of peer similar to what we've seen near Cheretino, something like that. But the attack on the broad front line would be essentially self-destructive for Russia. So that's the main reason probably that's not going to happen. Unless they want to just create the buffer zone, which again would be the same disastrous sort of outcome, because it simply will not create, because Kharkiv is too close to Belgorod, to the border, and truly to create a buffer zone you need to capture Kharkiv, which really means you need probably like 200,000 troops, 250,000 troops, and that's not something that Russia has as reserve, as sort of extra force that they can sort of use in that area. But at the same time, there are non-stop Russian artillery shelling, attacks using gliding bombs along the border. So from that perspective, the situation switched, and now Russian side is more on offensive in terms of attacking targets on the Ukrainian side of the border. Before, it used to be that Ukraine would attack on the Russian side of the border. So in the summary, situation more or less the same, nothing sort of imminent there. If there is, so I'll try to sort of provide update. Now let's move to the situation on the North Lugansk section of the front line. So Russian forces continuing pressure in the north western direction, in direction of Kupyansk. Basically, the goal is Kupyansk. There is pressure also from northeast there, so it's basically two-sponge attack from both sides. The advance is extremely minimal, at least in this sort of southern sector. Russian troops I mentioned before captured villages Kislivka, Kalerivka next to each other. It's basically one village, and then they just making very sort of small baby moves towards Kupyansk. Nothing. There's definitely no kind of breakthrough here. It's pretty slow move. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about this, I spoke about the equipment. That the Russian side is clearly having fewer heavy equipment. What it also means that it's being less used, and the Russian side is more and more relying on infantry for generally for attacks. Obviously, it's supported by artillery, by gliding bombs, by the thermobaric weapons, but the main sort of the main role is on the soldier, not on the tanks. Now let's move to the North Donbass section of the front line. Things here more or less the same. Russian pressure, sort of moderate pressure, is straight direction of Siversk. That's Russian objective in this area, but Russian side is totally not having enough resources to create any meaningful threat here at this point. Now let's look at the situation west of Bakhmut, in the direction of Chasiv Yar, and actually the real goal is Konstantinivka, which is here, this town. So Russian attack is really kind of bogged down, or it's really not going as planned, because as you can see, Russian troops did not manage to capture this sort of northern sector, basically Grigorievka, and effectively then they cannot establish bridgehead on the other side here north of Chasiv Yar, and so the whole idea basically is self-defeated effectively, because looks like Russian troops managed to cross this freshwater channel here south of this road, Bakhmut Konstantinivka, basically captured bridgehead, but it sort of kind of leads them to nowhere, because this is without the northern pincer. This is to extent is useless. In some ways, it's just waste of resources. But there are some advances here. General, otherwise, situation straight east of Chasiv Yar is somewhat stable. I mean, it's temporary stability. Let's put it this way. Now let's move south. So let's see what's going on the central Donbass front line, where things really the worst for Ukraine. So I'll just use that older map, just because it's still largely relevant. But there are advances of Russian troops, so they initiated fighting for this village Novoalexandrivka. So they basically captured this southeastern part of it, basically. So they already in the village, sort of going through the village. Nothing major going on here straight west of Cheret and then next to Sokil. However, Russian troops also started initiating fighting for this village Novopokrovske. So the most actually dangerous is actually this Novoalexandrivka, because it can really open a hole in without really much behind it, let's put it this way. Also, Russian troops managed to capture half of this village Umanske. So as you can see, there are advances. They are not something similar to what happened in Cheretina. They not break through. They sort of slow squeezes, except Ukrainian forces are certainly exhausted, certainly lot less motivated, and so they slowly but surely moving back. This is the same, just the whole big picture. Also, I want to mention that Russian troops are moving along this road from Donetsk towards Netaylove. They nearly captured the village Netaylove, which is kind of like next to this lake here on the eastern side. So basically, they moving along slowly but surely. This salient is becoming sort of worse and worse from Ukrainian perspective, except the Russian advances somewhat slow down, but they still happening, they still inevitable, and eventually it's like the dam will break, and there will be advances of Russian troops that are much faster. But for now, it's on the slower side. Then to the south, Russian troops for now stuck trying to capture Krasnohorivka, which is not straightforward. It's obviously urban. There is a lot of convenient positions for defense, so it will take some time to capture that for Russian troops. Once Krasnohorivka captured, that again opens up pretty easy terrain for moving forward. Also, for now, Russian troops sort of bogged down west of Novomikhailivka and also west of Marinka. There's not really meaningful advances there. Now let's move to Zaporizhya front line. There is very clear 2 points of pressure for Russian side. One is south of Velika Novosilka, so basically the same areas where Ukrainian forces were attacking in the summer of 2023. So now things reversed. Russian command apparently for some reason wants to recapture lost ground. They actually do have small advances in here in villages Robotyne and Novomayorsky. So Ukrainian forces definitely losing ground. They're not holding ground. It's slow, but it is happening. Also pressure in Robotyne, where little by little, baby steps, Russian troops in process of capturing this village Robotyne. Now let's look at the situation along the Dnipro River. Things here are quiet. This is actually where this 810th Brigade, well, really division at this point. I forgot to mention the only sort of clear part that the Russian command is still, call it, in a learning phase. There's still quite a bit to learn. Is that they split effectively this unit into 3 pieces, and they actually at different sections of the front line. It's, you know, obviously wrong way to sort of manage troops. This is being practiced very frequently by Ukrainian command, which is a sign of extremely bad practice, of complete mess, and, you know, in some case uncontrollable situation. So Russian command is prone to that as well. Not as bad, simply because situation is a little bit better on the Russian side, but it's very clear there's still no realization how to that units should be whole. It should not be pulled into, you know, piece by piece into different locations. So which again gives a little bit more time for Ukrainian side, but in terms of ability to learn, to improve, which unfortunately, as you can imagine, I'm very skeptical that that's going to happen with the current Ukrainian political and military top. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye-bye.